So how are you guys doing?
Oh, we're good. Things are
Hanging in
exciting,
there, rocking
crazy,
it out.
fun, weird, all that.
Yeah.
Love it. Love to hear weird. Same. Stay weird.
Yeah.
So I want to know what brought you guys into the health scene? Like, how did you get into making high quality baby food?
Well, my dad ate yogurt and wheat germ when I was a kid. So he was kind of always been in the health scene. So I sort of grew up around that, but I was in general a sick little kid, and I had just a lot of stomach pain, digestive problems, a lot of anxiety, insomnia, weird stuff. But I thought that it was just permanent and I had to live that way. And I thought stomachs were just supposed to hurt. And I started taking antacids when I was about 15. And I remember getting my first car and loving it because I could go buy my own Tums from the drugstore whenever my stomach hurt. And then fast forward 20 years, and I'd been taking antacids every day for most of my life, and they stopped working. And I went to the doctor, and she gave me another fancier pill to take every day. And she said I'd have to take it every day for the rest of my life. And I didn't like that answer. I didn't know what I was going to do. So I called my dad, the health nerd, and I'm like, Dad, what do I do? And he said, maybe you should try changing your diet. I sent you that book last year for Christmas on the paleo diet. And I thought it sounded super dumb, eat like a caveman. Like, this was 12 years ago. And I never, I thought it sounded super dumb, but I was desperate. So I tried it and it worked. And I realized that food was a big part of my health journey, and basically not even food. I was eating garbage. I was eating trash from the industrial food system and literal waste from the industrial food system. So once I kind of added nutrient-dense veggies in, taught my stomach how to do its own thing and heal it and get it better, things were better for me.
Yeah.
I'm autistic. I wasn't diagnosed as a child, so had a lot of social challenges, of course, but a lot of physical challenges as well. Very sensitive to toxins, to inflammation. I was overweight as a kid. I was a very picky eater. I basically lived on canned ravioli and nachos. Those were my
Chef Boyardee, baby.
Chef Boyardee. Yep.
Those are my foods. So, all foods that turned out highly inflammatory to me. So in my journey to integrate autism, changing my diet was a part of that, exploring the role diet played, but really meeting Serenity, she introduced me to the paleo diet and fell in love with her and the paleo diet at the same time, and really discovered that focusing on meats and veggies and fats, cutting out the processed foods, the grains, the sugars, industrial seed oils, that was really helped me feel a lot better. And so food was hugely important to both of us. So as soon as we started family planning, the first thing we thought was baby food. Like, what are we going to feed this baby so that they don't turn out like we did, all sick? And we went looking for baby foods, and we're very disappointed with what we found.
Yeah. And what's so interesting? So, Serenity, I have a similar story to you, although it was my mom that was super into health, not my dad. And I specifically remember when my brother was little, she would puree all the food herself because she was like, I can't find anything healthy because the Gerbers and all the other things on the market are super sugary, and all they are made out of basically is like fruit and grains, which is the exact opposite of what babies need. Like, growing brains need animal proteins, they need high quality fats. So when I found your food, I was like, oh my God, this is so genius. Why has it taken someone so long to do this? It's crazy.
Well, we thought the same thing. In fact, it took me, 6 months to really believe that no one else was doing it, because it was such a no-brainer. I looked in France, I looked in Canada, I looked all over the world to try to find these baby foods, and they just didn't exist. And now that we're doing it, I know why they're not doing it. It's hard. It's really hard. There was no supply chain built out for business to business transactions of like regenerative meats and certain kinds of oils and certain kinds of ingredients. We had to build that out ourselves. And then the manufacturing is also really hard. We're making our veggie and meat purees on equipment designed for fruits. So we needed to do some special welding and calibrations of those machines because the texture of the puree is different. And we had a lot of failed attempts at doing the first few pouch runs because of that difference in viscosity and the texture. And it's expensive, right? Our ingredient, thinking about buying applesauce compared to grass-fed beef or regeneratively farmed beef, like there's a huge cost difference. So making those numbers work really probably only work for either little companies like ours that just don't have a lot of overhead and we can figure out how to make that work, or huge companies with massive scale and just tons of cash to throw at problems. But because we're the former, we were little and scrappy and have figured it out. And also, we're not the cheapest pouch on the aisle. And there are a lot of big companies that weren't willing to take that risk. Can we launch a pouch that's double the price, that's triple or quadruple the nutrition? Will people buy it? And so we were that test case. Yes, of course they will. Their moms were begging us for it. We meet people at trade shows all the time that say, man, I wish I'd had this when my kid was young, and, I stayed up until midnight pureeing his foods because there was nothing that I was willing to feed him and I was a full-time mom. I had a full-time job and was mom, things like that. So for us, it's giving me goosebumps. I just feel so happy to be able to support those parents that are looking for that better nutrient dense option, but also still live in this crazy world and need something convenient. And also we're able to make it taste great. When you use really high quality ingredients and balance it out, okay, you don't need those sugars and those kind of fillers to get the baby to eat it. I'll never forget the first time we did a run we did a test batch at our house. I remember I was driving home from my job. I had 2 other jobs when we started this company. And I called Joe and I was like, Joe, maybe no one is making this food because babies won't eat it. We've got to find a baby. We didn't have a baby at the time, So I'm like, do we know any babies? Can we try to make it and get some babies to eat it? And I had one paleo friend who had how old was Orion? Eight months old or something?
Maybe a year, yeah.
And we bought some little empty squeezy pouches on Amazon with this little homemade filler. You can make your own pouches, moms can make their own pouches. And we had a bunch of fights trying to weigh and measure things in the kitchen, making teeny amounts. We've never done this before. And we drove them all around and delivered them to people, and they were not shelf stable. So we had to deliver them all the same day. They had to eat them in 2 or 3 days. And I'll never forget, she sent me a picture of her kid holding the pouch, and she sent me a blurb that says, he sucked the whole thing down and wouldn't let me have the pouch back. He's been playing with it all day. And I remember I started crying because I thought, these babies know what's up. These babies know what's up. They want good fats. They want good meats. They want healthy veg, and they don't need a bunch of sugary fruits to feel satisfied and happy.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I love that story so much. Well, that's the thing. Kids are very intuitively connected to what their body needs. And not only that, but this beginning stage of life is absolutely imperative that kids are fed nutritious foods. And it's crazy to me that we don't put more of an emphasis on that. You look at the ingredients of the baby food on the shelf, you look at the formulas, which I want to go into in a little bit. And it's crazy to me that this is probably one of the most imperative times for a human because their brain is developing, their body is growing, and we're feeding them just complete garbage ingredients. So for people that are not aware of Serenity Kids, what differentiates your food from others on the market?
It's funny. It's about the only thing that's the same is that it's in a pouch. It's a pouch puree. So the format is the same. Which was intentional because we wanted to make it easy for parents to switch and to find us. But otherwise, we're completely different what's inside. Our recipes mimic the macronutrients of breast milk. We're the first people to do that, to really take breast milk as the template. And that's a very important fat to carb ratio, that it's about equal fat and carbs. There was no other fat on the aisle. There's still pretty much no other fat on the aisle. We're the only ones that have any amount of fat in our products. Ours all have at least 5 grams of fat per pouch. Babies need 30 grams of fat a day. They say that before the age of 2, half their calories should come from fat. So fat's really
conventional
important.
Mainstream, which I was surprised.
The science, everybody agrees. Yeah. Key for babies, and yet there was no fat on the aisle. There's still nobody's putting fat in baby food. We're the only ones to have good meat. Nobody's used any kind of animal products. There's a few other products with meat in them that were pretty gross. They're hard to find. They don't taste good. They mix grain with it.
And fruit, like
Sometimes
chicken, quinoa, and
Yeah.
blueberry, you know, things like that.
Yeah, it's weird.
I know.
It's those strange recipes that don't sell well because they taste bad, and then they're, you know, trying to keep costs down, and like, we're not focused on cost, we're focused on quality. So we have meat, we have fat. We're entirely vegetable forward. First ingredient of all our products is a vegetable, which is also unique. Mostly it's fruit is the first ingredient of another. So we don't use any fruits. You'll never find sugary fruits in our products, but we always have vegetables. You know, we're family owned. We're the only leading baby food company that is run by parents. You know, most of the other big companies are all huge conglomerates.
Executives.
Yeah, big food executives that we're feeding this to our kid every day. All our staff feed this to their babies on a daily basis. You know, we're one of the only ones that's heavy metal tested. So there's a lot of controversy around heavy metals in baby food, and all the major brands were called out for having, you know, lots of heavy metals in their products. So ours are clean label projects certified that they're, you know, the lowest levels in the industry. We have a quality program second to none. And then we support regenerative agriculture, which, you know, there's very few baby foods have any kind of sustainable or sourcing story at all, you know, let alone the best sourcing. Like, you don't even know the sourcing of most of those products.
Well, it's organic. That's
Yeah,
all you
they know it's certified organic,
Right.
but you don't know what the practices were and how big the farms were. So you can read all about all our farms on our website. You know, we're committed to supporting regenerative agriculture and buying the best possible meat, pasture raised and regeneratively farmed meats. So there's more, but those are the highlights.
I love it. I mean, you're just speaking my language right now. I can't wait till I have kids, because this is what I will be feeding my kids as well. Like we mentioned in the very beginning, we met at a regenerative farming conference, and this is a conversation I'm very passionate about. I talk about it all the time. I have multiple podcast episodes, so I'll just tell people to go back and reference those because I want to stay focused on your food. But I just love your commitment to the quality of food. And what I'm trying to understand is, how did we get to this place where you guys are the only food baby company that are making, or baby food company that are making these like high quality products? How did we get this so messed up where everything we're offering to kids is sugary and grains, whereas what they need to be having is fat and proteins? Like, how did we mess this up so bad?
It didn't used to be that way, and I didn't plan this, but there's a great book called Inventing Baby Food by Amy Beck. And it hasn't always been this way. So the first baby foods were like liver and onion puree, bone broth and liver, meat purees. So back in the, you know, post World War II era of we started canning foods, the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, there was that. And then, I don't know, the 60s and 70s hit, and people needed to find cost reductions. There were not necessarily as good a quality options available that kept going, right? Like I said, from a business to business perspective. And I guess it just sort of fell out of favor. Also, as you probably know, the sugar industry started lobbying for fat to be labeled as bad. So that trickled down into the baby food aisle, we figure.
It's like the low fat movement plus the vegan vegetarian meat is bad movement. Essentially, all the health food experts were saying, don't feed meat and feed low fat. And that ended up on the baby food aisle. We see that corrected in most of the rest of the aisle. Most of the rest of the store now, we've seen more and more good meats. We're seeing more quality fats, you know, but baby, nobody had done it on baby yet. And so we were really the first. And because baby food's dominated by such large companies, it takes them forever to do anything new. And they're just dinosaurs in that regard. So we've been selling for 4 years now. There's still been zero competition. I mean, nobody's tried to do what we're doing.
Well, we had someone make veggies plus fat.
The Happy Baby came out with a really bad tasting, and they only did 2.5 grams of fat. So they tried. The veggie fat line is our lowest selling line. Like our meat products are the most popular. The veggie fats are kind of supplementary. So they copied our like lower selling line, and they didn't do very well. We're seeing more veggie forward stuff. We're seeing lower sugar stuff. Like they are trying to get the sugar out. They're trying to get more vegetables in. But this like plant powered, whole movement of like plant-based, blah, 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 is still just so big. And people because that was 2 years ago, that's when they started innovating. It takes them 2 years, 3 years to get a product out. Just now we're seeing that stuff come out. So we hope that people copy us. We'd really like to see more meat. We'd really like to see more fat, more diversity. Like we want to see the whole aisle change to get rid of the grain, to heavy metal test everything, to, lower the sugar or take it out entirely and bring meat back.
Because when I read Melissa Hartwood's book, Whole30, I don't remember what the name of it. It starts with food, was the name of the book. She said, every bite counts. And I remember thinking about that. She's thinking about it for a grown-up, for meat. So like every bite that I take, I can choose. Do I want to add nutrition to my body or not? And when you're feeding a baby, the exact same thing applies, magnified 100 times, because feeding a baby sucks. It's hard trying to get spoonfuls in, trying to figure it out. So we know, now we have a baby, even after we started the company, right? And so we know how hard that is. And we wanted to make every bite really, truly count.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Well, and I've read, so I don't have a baby myself, but I have read that this is why it's so important in the very beginning to introduce them as many foods as possible, because you really want to introduce their palate to everything. And that's what's so sad and scary about like everything being so sugary and sweetened now, is that we are training their palates to be just craving massive amounts of sugar at such a young age. And then we're scratching our heads wondering why the obesity rates are rising, chronic diseases are rising. And again, like you said, every bite counts, and it really starts in those beginning stages, And it's interesting that you brought up that the low fat movement. I actually never thought about this in equation with baby food, but there was that famous Harvard study in I think it was the 70s, where they found that it was actually sugar that was causing heart disease. But then the sugar industry stepped in, they paid off those scientists, and then cued the low fat movement. And that makes so much sense. So then we made everyone fear fat, and then it moved into baby food, which is horrifying, because what you mentioned earlier about breast milk, if you look at the components of breast milk, it's mostly fat, and nature didn't get it wrong. So why are we not mimicking that?
Yeah. The brain's made of fat. Their brain is, doubling in size. Their body's doubling in size. The spine is fat. All vitamins are, absorbed. Fat soluble vitamins need fat. So it's tragic, like it's 30 grams of fat a day they need. And instead, when we did our study of all the baby foods on the aisle before our products, it was an average of 9 grams of sugar per pouch. Wow. And babies are eating 2-3 of those a day. You get 30 grams of sugar instead of fat, and you've got a Snickers bar worth of sugar that you're giving to a tiny little baby. That would be like you or me eating 300 grams of fat or sugar. It's literally 10 times.
Right? And we're 150 pounds-ish.
So even that 9 grams doesn't sound like much for one pouch, but that's 90 grams for you or me, And so it's like, and that's just pure fruit, which all the vitamins have been boiled out of, processed fruit purees. So maybe whole fruit might have some vitamin content in addition to the sugar, but those fruit purees, like there's nothing left, like it's the equivalent of jam.
Yeah, exactly. Those purees, they boil them down so intensely that any sort of vitamins and nutrients are boiled out of there. Gosh, it just makes me so sad, because there's so many parents that aren't aware of this. So I want to ask you, for people that may not understand why. So why did you guys go grain-free? I know there's an issue about arsenic in the rice. So maybe if we want to talk about that too, because I think a lot of people don't know about that.
Yep. Grain-free in general. So our family has been grain-free. I mean, Joe and I have been grain-free for years. And the reason that we chose that was primarily 2 reasons. One, it's just not as nutritious. So if you're comparing bite for bite, and you look at a bite of grass-fed meat and you look at a bite of wheat, you're going to get way much more nutrition in the meat bite.
Or even squash or potato, right? Vegetables compared to grains.
That's right.
Much higher vitamin content.
And then also grain is inflammatory, and it wreaks havoc on the gut. It's very hard to digest. Those little seeds are not meant to be digested. Like Mother Nature created those seeds to propagate those plants, and any animals that eat them, those seeds were designed to withstand the digestive tract and be excreted by those animals somewhere farther away, and to keep propagating that plant, right? It's that plant's way of reproducing. So even though we ground them up, those dangerous chemicals that are in there that are kind of coating the germ that are trying to make it through the digestive tract, they're still there and they're inflammatory. And, you know, Rob Wolf has a famous blog, like how to keep poop out of your bloodstream or something. And I read that and I was like, oh my gosh, I need to change everything. So
those are frequently called anti-nutrients. And not only do they not digest the grain, but it takes all the rest of the food you ate with it. Like
causes leaky gut.
It removes the vitamins you might have gotten from meat or veggies you're eating with grain. So they kind of, reduces the nutritional impact of the rest of your foods, and then creates inflammation in the process.
Yeah. Yeah. I mostly eat grain free because I discovered this as well. And I started paying attention to the different foods that I was eating and recognizing, okay, oatmeal makes me feel like shit. I can do a little bit of rice. Like there's certain things I can do a little bit of, but I think, it's important. Once you start tuning into your body, you really start taking note of the things that you feel sick on and inflammatory and so it's cool. I also think you guys might be the first baby food, like snacks on the market that are grain free.
We are.
That's right.
It's crazy. Cool. Like you said, it was all sugar and grain. It was either purees in the pouches or grains in the puffs, bars, teething biscuits. All that it was mostly gluten free. Yeah. Mostly. There's still some food, but it's all rice or white rice flour, which there's people with gluten intolerance, which maybe rice is a little better for them, but rice is still pretty inflammatory. Serenity and I've been monitoring our glucose a lot. We've been wearing glucose monitors and looking at our blood sugar, and grains also are empty carbs, like they convert to sugar really quickly. So we say sugar and grain, it's almost the same thing in the body. Like grains and those kinds of empty carbs just go straight to the blood sugar. Like for me, white rice is the same as like if I eat a gluten-free hot, hamburger bun, I might as well eat like a donut. It's like the same thing.
And then speaking of rice, you mentioned arsenic earlier. The way that arsenic kind of pollutes our water system, and rice is grown with a lot of water. A lot of the rice in this I'll just say in the world period, is heavy on the arsenic. And a lot of other rice-based baby pups have been known to have extremely high levels of arsenic, which is a neurotoxin. And babies' brains are growing a lot in their first couple of years of life. And so you want to keep those brains as neurotoxin free as possible. So we opted for using cassava, which is a root vegetable, and
thoroughly tested, because roots also can get heavy metals from being in the soil. So we, thoroughly test our cassava and our sweet potatoes and our carrots, and have, very high standards for that. So like we said, we feed these to our daughter. But yes, the rice supply is so contaminated, it's almost impossible to get arsenic-free rice.
And it was even hard to find low arsenic and just really low lead levels of cassava too. At first, I didn't think we were going to be able to make the pups product because I knew it had to be grain-free, which meant no rice. And then the cassava that we were finding also was not low enough to meet our standards. So we finally found a really clean supplier out of Nicaragua, and I'm really proud of that puffs product. It's a snack. It's like occasionally I was buying those rice puffs for my own kid, because at some point she just needs something to kind of occupy her while I'm cooking. Yeah, something to kind of practice picking up and eating. And so it's a little embarrassing, but I did buy those a few times. And so now people don't have to do that. And we put our puffs, I'm really proud of, because they actually taste like the vegetables that they're named. And that's because they have dried ground up vegetable powder on the outside. We really wanted to excite their flavor window when you're wanting to expose kids to a lot of different flavors. And this early, the 6 to 8 to 18 month time frame is really the time when you would want to do it. And so our broccoli spinach puff tastes like broccoli and tastes like spinach.
We also dehydrated bone broth.
Yeah,
the first.
That's so cool.
Broth in some of the puffs, so they have a couple of grams of protein also, and as far as I know, the first one to snackify bone broth. We're the first bone broth on the baby aisle anyway, both in our bone broth pouches and in our puffs. But particularly this proprietary dehydrated bone broth is really cool ingredient that we're finding lots of new ways to use. And
it tastes great, right? Bone broth tastes good. So put that on kind of some cassava snack with some veggie powder. They're addictive. I can't open them in my office. When we do taste tests, I'm get those things away from me. I will just eat the whole can. So that tastes great.
And they're really unique flavors I've noticed too. I'm a fan of the puffs. I've had canisters of them in my pantry before. My friends are like, why do you have baby food? I'm like, guys, they're really good. Trust me.
They are good.
Yeah, I use them in croutons on a salad.
Yeah. Yeah.
Movie, they're like a popcorn alternative. Mm-hmm. So they're
so really good. I love it. Okay. So I want to talk about formula because this is a really hot topic right now. Obviously with that formula shortage, I don't know if that's still going on, but more important it is. Okay. So I will say that when we started dealing with this shortage, obviously it's devastating. However, at the same time, my thinking was, as someone that knows how horrible the ingredients are in those formulas, my first thought was, oh, thank God, now women are going to be forced to find other options, whether that be breast milk banks or other companies like yourselves that actually have it in stock that are making cleaner options. Like when there's a will, there's a way, right? And when you look at the ingredients of the conventional formula, I mean, the first time I ever looked at the back of one of those, I think my jaw literally dropped. Because there's corn syrup solids, there's seed oils, there's synthetic vitamins. I'm trying to remember what else is in conventional formulas.
Soy. There's a lot of maltodextrin, tons of corn. It's basically corn and soy and industrial oils.
And non-fat conventional milk, like the lowest grade skim milk you could buy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then when you don't even think about like what's on, or if you think about what's not even on the label, so that milk comes from conventional cows. So there's growth hormones in there and probably the antibiotics and maybe pharmaceuticals or whatever it was that those cows are eating, and genetically modified corn, wheat, and soy, which is sprayed with pesticides. Like I could go on. It's crazy how trash those are. It's criminal.
In my opinion. But I'm a mom. And so I get real mad and I want to advocate for those babies. So I think it's disgusting and criminal and should be stopped. But
yeah, agreed.
Also, as a mom, I also did feed formula to my kid because I had trouble nursing, and you can't actually buy breast milk. It's illegal to buy someone's breast milk. So milk banks are really only used for premature babies, which is amazing. Plug for milk banks. If you've got extra milk stashed, moms, don't throw it out. Find a milk bank to donate it to because it keeps those babies literally alive. It's amazing.
Yeah.
But I had to feed formula to my kid starting about 9 months. And it was brutal. It was brutal. I remember, I just cried and cried because I knew that I had to feed her something that I wasn't going to like. Right.
Yeah.
I did a ton of research and I ended up settling on a whole wide range of options. I would drive out every week to a goat dairy farm outside of town, and I would buy her a bunch of raw goat's milk that had all been tested for bacteria and all those things. So she loved that stuff. And then I fed her 2 different formulas. One was a German goat milk formula that I didn't really like, but it was, better than the other bad ones.
Is it Hall or Holly or Hall or however you say it? Yeah.
Hall goat milk. And then another one I used was called Sammy's milk. And it was technically a toddler formula, but I had read a bunch of Facebook posts from other parents because it still had industrial seed oils, but it wasn't like the worst kinds. I think it was like high oleic sunflower oil. And it had methylated B vitamins. So I was like, okay, I don't really want folic acid in my formula. So this one was a decent one. It also had molasses. It had fish oil. It was brown and smelled like fish, which was a little rough sometimes, to feed it to my kid. But the seed was planted in that moment. Like, oh, you know what? I am in a position to maybe change this terrible, tragic, criminal situation. And I emailed a friend of mine, Dr. Sarah Valentine. I don't know if you know her, but she's really big in the autoimmune protocol movement. And she and I had been talking the year before about formula. So she's been advising our company for years. And I'm like, any chance you want to help me make this unicorn product and change the world? And to my great surprise and delight, she said yes. So we worked on it for 2 years. We finally launched our, our A2 grass-fed whole milk formula last year. So the summer of 2021. It was
great timing, guys, by the way.
So. It was great timing and also brutal timing at the same, right? It's not easy out there right now.
Yeah.
We basically, it's the same as the pouches. The format looks the same. It's in the same little can. It's powder you scoop, right? But everything else is different. Every macronutrient source is different. The fats, proteins, and carbs, all different, way upgraded sources. The vitamins are way better. For me, the thing I'm most proud of, if I have to boil it down to one thing, it's really the fat profile. Human milk, as one could imagine, is a complex, diverse, wildly ranging type of substance. And the fatty acid ratios and just the fat profile in general is really complex and difficult, which is another reason it's hard to make formula, because it is, if you're trying to mimic breast milk, which maybe not everyone is, but I think everyone is to some extent, then it is hard to mimic. And we use 8 different kinds of fats in here that are really great sources and that approximated human milk as close as possible.
More closely than ever.
Way closer.
The fatty acid profile. In general, Sarah, read over 200 papers on breast milk, like international studies of breast milk, everything ever written in English. She mapped the nutritional profile, and then she looked at hundreds of ingredients and did a matchmaking game to figure out, how we could
right ratios,
really mimic breast milk more than anything else ever has. And of course, we'll never replace it. It's too magical, but we were going to try to get as close as possible. And this product is, I feel unequivocally the closest thing to breast milk ever created. The fats being one part, the A2 protein being another huge part of it, the lactose sweetener, the lactose carbs instead of corn syrups or rice syrups, it's lactose, which is the same as breast milk. The vitamin sources, there's some prebiotic fiber, there's the non-inflammatory methylated B. So it's really everything.
Oligosaccharides, we use nucleotides.
DHA from wild algae oil, just the best source of everything. Whenever there was a choice, it was always for nutrition. Never for price or ease.
Or organic status.
Or any
like
kind
it's
of
not
status.
Officially organic because we use wild algal oil in a decent percentage, which you can't make a wild food classified as organic. And therefore, we weren't able to have it be certified organic, even though all the ingredients in there, except for that one, right, are pretty much organic.
Yeah.
But we decided what's better for babies. And that was the better choice.
Wow, that's so interesting. Also, what an epic product that you guys made. I'm so grateful I want to backtrack really fast and just say this for everyone listening and to you as well. I want to be really sensitive to all of this because I recognize and realize that this is such a sensitive topic for women. And there's a lot of women that are dealing with the devastating of, their non-ability to be able to feed their child with breast milk. This is also just, it's funny because it comes to this like weird intersection of like, I'm so passionate about this conversation because the formulas that we're giving moms, like right when they give birth, out of the hospital, are the ones that we're like, just really throwing all the marketing and advertising behind, and they're the cheapest ones. So they're the most accessible, are garbage. And it makes me so sad because like where I come from and what we've been talking about this entire episode is like, I really want to see humans thriving and living healthy. And, but I just wanted to say, I'm also like, my heart goes out to women that are struggling with this. And like, hopefully there are more resources for women. And I'm so grateful for people like you guys that are creating these products that are providing healthier options for people. So I just wanted to say that to be sensitive to it, because I know it's a hard subject.
It is not
moms want to breastfeed. Like the study's very clear that every mom pretty much really wants to breastfeed. Moms don't not breastfeed because they are lazy or they really either have circumstances where they just cannot.
They have to go back to work.
Largely economic. There's no guaranteed maternity leave in this country. You're lucky if you get 2 weeks unpaid, so trying to work full time and breastfeed is really, really tough. And then there's just a lot of miseducation. There's just a lot of moms, they're told they shouldn't, or that it's not important, or that formula is better or just as good, or, there's all kinds of education lacking resources.
There's also, if I can step on my soapbox for just a second, in South America, there are a lot of babies who get their lip and tongue ties revised at birth, and they have a much higher rate of breastfeeding for longer. And that was actually one of our issues, was that Dylan needed lip tie revision. And as soon as she had that surgery, nursing stopped hurting. And it was like, what? This is what it could be like? Because I was in so much pain for so many months. It was awful. So I'm actually, next month, August, is Breastfeeding Awareness Month, and I'm going to start an education campaign. So I'm just planting the seed for those listeners who might be moms or be thinking about becoming moms, that lip and tongue ties are a thing that can interfere with nursing, and that they are very easy to correct.
So a lot of things that interfere. It shouldn't hurt. A lot of moms think it just should hurt. So there's lots of lactation consultants. There's lots of resources. There's all this fear about supply. Oh, my supply isn't enough. They're not eating enough. I need to supplement with formula because my supply isn't enough. Like all this shame. Your supply is enough. Like it's very, very rare that your supply isn't enough for your baby. And if you start introducing formula, it actually decreases your supply, and it creates this cycle of formula dependency that leads to full weaning. And so there's just so many myths. There's so much shame around it. There's so much pressure.
And it's also so hard. Being a new mom, period, is hard.
So hard.
Much less having to go online and doing research and having meetings with lactation consultants. I mean, that's hard.
And having to go back to work and having trouble getting supported by your partner. I mean, it's
dehydration is a thing.
Yeah.
I was super dehydrated. So I didn't really have good electrolyte balances. And now there's element packets. I don't know if you've ever heard of them, but they're these great hydration.
Literally drinking it right now.
I've got some too. And if I had that when I was mom, it would have been, I think, a little bit easier. Mm-hmm. So there's a whole myriad of factors that are caused by civilization and us living in these toxic and stressful environments that make it really, really tricky. But I applaud any mom that tries, that succeeds, that tries and fails, right? Trying it all is not easy. I was just looking at a meme on Facebook the other day, and it was something like a nursing mom nurses for 1 year. Here it is. Providing breast milk for 1 year takes roughly 1,825 hours. If you have a full-time job and 3 weeks vacation, it's 1,960. It's about the exact same amount. And that's with 3 weeks off and weekends off.
Oh man.
So it is so much work that I didn't even know.
Yeah. One of my best girlfriends just had a baby 2 months ago, and just being along her side and witnessing how much she has to feed the baby. It's wild. It's very time consuming. Mm-hmm. Well, and back to your point, Joe, that I wanted to stress a little bit more. I think what a lot of women, are in the dark about is this education piece, because I had never heard this. I had a woman recently, a doula, on my podcast, and she talked about this very thing. She was like, it's important that women know that there's different things that could be hindering your baby from latching. Like, for example, the tongue tie, the lip tie. And these are things that if a mom knew and could remedy it, then your problem is no longer a problem. Or for example, there's a thing happening now because they put fentanyl in epidurals. So like, women listening, if you don't know this, if you're getting an epidural, no shame, no problem, but just make sure you tell them I want it without fentanyl, because they put it in fentanyl just together. And what's happening is the babies now coming out are like super drugged up, and then they can't latch. And then the mom panics, and then they just throw them on formula immediately, instead of knowing and realizing that they need to, well, one, don't get the fentanyl, but also if that happens, know that like the baby just needs a little bit of time to come out of the drowsiness and whatever. Just really sad.
You just stick in coffee to wake them up, you know?
Yeah, exactly. So there's a lot of education. And on top of that, and you mentioned this, but it's important to stress, so we forget that these formula companies have massive marketing budgets, and they're telling women that formula is better than breast milk. So a lot of women are doing this thinking that they're doing better for their baby. And so it's, they think like, oh, breastfeeding is fine. Like, I don't actually really need to do it. And, this is a small subset of women, and no shame if you felt that way in the past, but this is where education comes in, to show that these formulas are here for cases when you really can't do anything else. But breastfeeding, really, if you can do it, and if you can be educated on the ways to do it, to get over the humps of it being super hard, that's where you're going to find success.
Yeah, the formula companies are actually pharmaceutical companies. It's the same people who make drugs and who buy into this Western medicine idea that people need doctors and drugs to make themselves healthy, that food and lifestyle and intuition and spirituality, none of those things matter for health. The only thing that can make you healthy is our drugs and our expert doctors telling you what to do. And that, that's their mentality. They're not evil. They're not trying to hurt people, I don't think. They just genuinely believe that the only way to be healthy is to have essentially people are born diseased. Infancy is a disease that must be treated. Childbirth is a disease to be medicated. Pregnancy, right? They treat it all as if it's a disease to be treated, as opposed to a natural thing that's happened for thousands of years that should just be mostly left alone, let it run its course, unless there's some kind of significant issue. And so that's where formula like childbirth, like pregnancy, is highly informed by Western medicine, and this idea that what we want to tightly control what a baby eats. They can't control breast milk. They don't know what everybody's breast milk has. They can't determine the exact.
They also can't make money.
Right. And well, that's sort of the,
darker side.
That's the more cynical is of course, all this leads to huge financial gains, which is, pretty unfortunate and at best an unconscious motivation, but their worldview is such that says babies need medicine, which formula is medicine, these synthetic vitamins. The rice cereal is the same way. I kept asking, why do pediatricians still recommend fortified rice cereal as a first food? It's full of arsenic. It causes constipation. There's no nutrition. There's no science around this. Why would doctors recommend this? And all I can come up with from talking to progressive pediatricians, who obviously don't recommend that, is that the synthetic iron is the treatment for the disease of infancy. It's this idea that you need this fake iron because you're iron deficient, and we can't control how much beef you get or spinach you get, or how much iron is in the beef, how much iron is in the spinach, even though the evidence is very clear that there's lots more iron in beef and spinach. And it's much more absorbable. And then the fake iron in the rice cereal has lots of problems, but just this worldview has to shift.
And that's how I was raised. When I got sick, I went to the doctor and got antibiotics multiple times a year. That's just kind of how it worked. And I'm so grateful that my dad was a health nut and found his way here, and I hopped on board that train, and I got Joe on it and my kid, and now my business, it's really, it's a luxury that I have, and I have a lot of privilege around it, and I am really trying to help spread the word.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and I think most people forget that we really don't know that much about food or the human body. We think we know a lot, but the more you learn and the more you uncover, the more you realize how much you don't know. This podcast alone has been such a learning experience for me, because I've been studying nutrition in this world for, 17 years. And then I get these amazing experts and doctors and nutritionists come on my podcast, and I'm like, I've never heard that before. Wow. And you're just reminded of that we know so little, and we think that we know, so with these formulas, we think that we've we've whittled it down to all these synthetic vitamins and these seed oils or whatever it is. And this will be enough nutrition to provide for the baby. But it's we don't actually really know that.
The vitamins are only 100 years old.
That we even knew they existed.
We only discovered vitamins 100 years ago. And if you think about a clinical trial on someone's life, that's a 40-year time span. Wow, so how many of those trials can we really have done, and building upon a body of knowledge? It will take centuries to even get halfway there. Mm-hmm. So we are ignorantly assuming, or maybe arrogantly assuming, that we know a lot more than we really do.
The comforting thing is our bodies know.
That's right.
And our babies know.
And the earth knows.
Right. And the resilience, and we talk about these garbage formulas, how many babies eat them and how well most people turn out. There's different things with disease and chronic illness or whatever, but by and large, humans are incredibly resilient. Yep. It's very hard to actually hurt us. We can recover from almost anything. And, there's so much intuition, in learning to trust our own bodies. But I think especially when it comes to pregnancy, childbirth, raising babies, raising children, that's the most important thing, is trusting our that it's going to be okay, that we actually know mom's intuition knows what's right for her baby, regardless of what all the experts say. So get out of this idea that science has an explanation for everything, or you need to go to your doctor for everything, or that you're doing it wrong. So much, everything is telling us to doubt ourselves, especially women are told to doubt their knowing, their intuition. Moms are blamed for everything. So, we really, that's where the real knowledge is in that deeper knowing.
Yes. Oh my God. I'm so glad that you brought this up. I talk about this all the time. And I think, I have found, so this is anecdotal in my own personal experience, but the more that I've cleaned up my diet and I've eaten more, like whole, real, clean foods, the more in touch I've been able to get in with my intuition. Like one of the hardest questions I get on my Instagram from people is like, will you make me a meal plan? Like, what do I eat? And I'm like, you got to like get in touch with your body, because I'm very intuitively led, but it took me a long time to get there because I had to get through all the cravings of the highly palatable processed foods. And that's the thing, is we forget that our bodies are highly intelligent and they know what we need, but we're being inundated and we're getting very confused because we're just being thrown all these highly processed foods that are, highly palatable, super addictive. There are food scientists that are creating these like specific ratios of fat, sugar, and salt to just make it so addictive that you're no longer in tune with what your body actually is craving and really needs. So it's important that we get back in tune with that intuitive nature so that we can really feed ourselves.
Mm-hmm. And starting at infancy is part of our mission, is if we can start kids off at the very beginning on these nutrient dense foods. You talked about the flavor window and the palate development, that's permanent, that 6 months to 18 months flavor window, that your palate preferences are formed for life. So all these sugary purees are really leading to that sugar addiction, leading to, of course, the children's food industry is also full of sugar and grain, which we want to eventually change and make children's food products, but that's like, we change it ourselves and start to trust ourselves, and then really start our kids up for success from day one, with focusing on breast milk and better formulas if needed, and then really nutrient dense foods like ours.
Yes. Okay. I have two more questions about the formula specifically, because I want to make this really clear for people. Why can't you say that your formula is okay for infants?
We are officially a toddler formula. So the process to become infant formula certified is a multi-year, 3 to 4 years, dealing with the FDA right now, maybe longer, and a multi-million-dollar process. So first you have to give the product to a control group and an experimental group of mice. Mice hate lactose. So you've got to get these mice to grow with your product, and a lactose heavy formula is going to be harder to succeed there. Wow. And then you actually give the product to a control group and an experimental group of actual real live human babies. And there are some ethical issues for me around feeding babies, but using babies as a science experiment. But also it's just really, really long. It's super resource intensive. And in my opinion, it's a little bit antiquated and outdated, because the formula that they're using as that control group was designed in the 1970s. So it's the Infant Formula Act of 1980 that's governing all of these infant formulas. And that's based on 10-year-old science, starting from, you have to back that up even another decade, right? Because legislation takes forever to happen. So that science is maybe from 1970, maybe from the 60s. So it's really, really old science that they're using. And I mean, if I had tons of cash and lots of extra time, I might have started this process. But I'm also like, I know that what I have in my product is excellent and superior and premium. And I don't want to dumb down my product just to get it certified as infant formula. I was a mom who fed my older baby. She was 9 months old. I fed her a toddler formula because I had read that, feedback from other parents saying my kid did great on this. So we wanted to go ahead and get this product out to market. I didn't want to wait around 3 or 4 or 5 more years with a big question mark hanging over my head and a giant amount of debt, throttling my business. I wanted to make it available for moms who wanted it now.
Mm-hmm. So we can only call a toddler formula recommended for 12 months and up. Mm-hmm. It does meet all of the 29 nutrients required for infant formula. It is made in an infant formula facility. So really the only step of the process we haven't completed is these long and expensive feeding studies, which the US is the only country in the world that requires that. Europe doesn't require that. So, if we were in Europe, we likely could have been an infant formula already. And right now the FDA is giving emergency infant formula certification to a lot of products like ours. We're in the process of applying for that. So we might be able to start marketing it to infants sooner than later. Awesome. But for now, health, all we can say is that you talk to your health practitioner, make a decision. We have a really awesome one pager you can download from our website to bring to your health practitioner. If you want to say, hey, does this formula look like it's safe for my baby? A lot of moms do their own research and compare, nutritions and ingredients, or read reviews from other moms. So there's definitely lots of parents using our product with their infants as their exclusive food source, if they're exclusively formula fed. And that was what we intended it to be for. We designed it to be for
nutritionally.
Nutritionally, that was the goal. And we do take all the quality precautions, knowing that moms may do that. But until either the FDA changes their process or we're able to get the right resources, will be considered a toddler formula.
Yeah.
Yeah. I will say that if I had an infant right now and I needed formula, I would give this to my kid.
Aww,
so
thanks.
This is the only one that I would give. So thank you for making.
Yes. Yeah.
So just for all those, future moms or current moms listening, that's what I would do. And it makes sense about why you can't say that. But anyways, and also for people that don't know what A2 milk is, can you explain that?
Yeah, so A2 beta casein protein is one of the proteins that's in milk. And so there's A1 and A2. And A2 is most mammal milks around the globe. Camels, goats, lots of different, many cows produce A2 milk. Humans produce A2 milk. And then there was, during the kind of agricultural millennia, some cows have been bred to produce A1 milk, which is a different kind of protein that has this beta casomorphin type peptide on there. And
it's kind of an accident. We were breeding cows for quantity of milk rather than quality. And what happened was the nutrition got degraded. Yeah. And this A1 protein mutation occurred in cattle, and now that's the primary dairy cow in the world. Is this weird A1 protein that's hard to digest?
Exactly. So it's harder to digest, and that's why we knew we wanted to choose A2, because human milk is A2, and we wanted to make every bite count, every sip count. So anyone who's fed a baby knows that spit up is not fun. You're like, wait a second, I just spent 45 minutes feeding that baby and now it's all coming back out. This is terrible. So we wanted to make sure that whatever nutrition went in was digestible and that those nutrients could become digested. And
we're super proud of the farm. Alexander Family Farm has been doing A2 regeneratively farmed dairy for 20 plus years. They were the first certified regenerative farm in America. So by the Savory Institute, they're the first regenerative dairy and one of the first ever. And they're an incredible family. You can watch the video and learn about their group out in California. You can get their milk in all Whole Foods now too. Whole Foods sells A2 whole milk, cultured skim milk from that same farm, and they're just 2%. And thank you. And then they're just regenerating the planet amazing. Like the carbon sequestration, the soil microbial growth. I mean, the amount of positive impact they've made on the land through raising cows, both for dairy and for beef, as well as chickens and eggs, and this multi-species approach, really revolutionary. And the milk quality is so high that we didn't have to add as many vitamins. We tested it, and there's so many more naturally occurring vitamins. Plus, the taste is different. And many people who can't tolerate dairy probably can tolerate A2 dairy. That a lot of dairy allergy is actually an A1 sensitivity.
Yeah, so interesting. Okay, so I have a question for you guys, personal question that I ask all my guests. What are your health non-negotiables? These are things that no matter how crazy busy your day is, whether it's lifestyle, diet, whatever it is, these are health non-negotiables that you do on a daily basis to ensure that you're in good health.
Mine have changed over the years. When I was healing my gut, I was extremely strict. I had no gluten. I had no dairy for years at a time. I mean, I think I went 3 years, not one speck of either of those things. And I've loosened up a little bit because my gut has gotten healthier and I can digest things. We just went on a cruise and I got to eat pain au chocolat from Italy and it was lovely. But for me right now, as a new mom, my non-negotiable is sleep. We have elaborate sleep rituals, protocols. We take turns every other night. He takes the baby, I take the baby. Mm-hmm. And like a lot of moms take the baby every night. So I'm just plugging out there, moms. You can trade. We take turns. We both work. It works for us. And I really think that has severely positively affected my mental health, which affects everything about my life. I'm a better mom. I'm a better wife. I'm a better friend. I'm a better boss. I'm better at everything. Yeah. And I'm just that much happier. It's awesome.
Yeah, I was going to say meat is like first and foremost, like take away everything else. Give me, I could eat nothing but meat all day long. Like if I could be straight carnivore, if that was what I had to do, it's non-negotiable. I was going to say sleep as well is like where a lot of our energy is spent on ensuring really good sleep. But even before that, we were very committed to sleep, like the importance of 8 to 9 hours, full dark, full blackout room, like really important sleep rituals.
Because we run a startup and it is stressful and we are, if the second we're out of bed, we are running full speed. Yeah. So having that break we didn't always prioritize sleep and it had negative effects.
I really need a vigorous adrenaline based exercise regimen. Water skiing's my favorite. I slalom ski. That's my favorite. But things like that, mountain biking, things that I get really amped up. I don't always prioritize it, but I really notice it when I do. Well, when I don't, like if I don't get that, I start to get tight and grumpy. And then we've been looking at our metabolic health a lot lately with glucose monitors, really looking at, it's not about not eating carbs or sugar, but eating it in the right way, like balancing it with fat and protein, using blood sugar lowering tricks like vinegar and cinnamon pills, just really like consciously eating carbs, not just mindlessly eating them. But now I know like what time of day I can eat them and what I need to combine it with, or like I need the protein appetizer before the sweet cocktail, like the blood sugar monitor really helps me hack that and understand how I can have some carbs and sugar without it really affecting my overall health.
Yeah. That's so important. And more people need to understand that. And also I love that you brought up meat because outside of my like eating meat daily in my meals, I have one of those Paleo Valley, the grass-fed beef sticks almost every day. And I joke, I'm like, this is a vitamin for me, but it's true.
You got to try the Rome sticks.
Oh, I have tried those too. Yeah, those are great.
Pasture-raised pork, they're the first regenerative pork farmer. Oh. And we're friends with the guy. We used his pork in our original. We had a bacon baby food that didn't make it. It was too soon for people, that bacon baby food. Yeah. But it's amazing pork, and they make a fermented pork stick that's sugar-free, fermented, really good. 5 fat, 5 protein every stick. So yeah,
I need to get more of those. Yum. Well, for everyone listening, what are ways they can support your mission, and then where can they find Serenity Kids?
Yeah, we have an awesome website, myserenitykids.com. There's a store locator on there. We're in over 10,000 stores nationwide. So probably we're in a grocery store near you. Also, you can buy all our products from the website. We have a great subscription option there to set it and forget it. We're on Amazon, Thrive Market, a lot of online grocery stores. And then any natural food store. We have, Whole Foods has all our products nationwide. So you can get to any Whole Foods, also Sprouts and natural grocers and co-ops, but a lot of conventional. We're in Walmart and Target and Kroger and places like that. And, I think the best way to support the mission, nobody ever asked me that before.
I would say tell your friends.
Spread the word. Share our, we do a lot of education on Instagram. So a lot of shareable posts on regenerative agriculture or on meat or on sugar or on memes around helping moms trust themselves and have more support. So you can share us with friends. You can join our email list. There's lots of opportunities there.
We have people buy variety packs for like their sister or their grandson.
Yeah, love that.
It's one way to get the word out.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really
Or
smart.
eat them yourself. They're great. A lot of adults eat the pouches. A lot of adults eat the puffs. There's so few packaged food that is genuinely
convenient,
good in every way, from the sourcing to the taste. And our bone broth pouches I think are delicious. I eat our turmeric chicken pouch regularly. Like you said, the puffs are great.
Yum. Yeah, I love it. Oh, well, thank you guys so much for coming on. I'm so grateful for the work that you're doing.